So we have started recording. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this session where we are going to be considering the Andropause. And I'm sure we'll get into that later. But my name is Clive Saunders. I'm the chair of the Watford African Caribbean Association and chair also of our Black History Planning Group. The Watford African Caribbean Association has been around now for 45 years in the town. If you've never heard, then you certainly have now, and hopefully you will consider joining us. We organize a range of activities, including we have a 50+ group. We also have a group that we call our Tribe Youth Group, as well as we have a sickle cell and thalassemia support group. And of course, we're facilitating and organizing Black history amongst other things too. Our motto is together we can achieve, and our organization aims to support the overall well-being of African and Caribbean people in our community. Of course, we welcome everyone to be involved in what we do. So on behalf of all of those groups, I'd like to welcome you this evening to this particular session. It's nice to see that there are one or two men on this call, since this is supposed to be what we're about. So you're not going to hear too much from me this evening, although I will put in the chat, or I'll probably pick up at some point some other things that we're doing this month around Black History Month that hopefully you join us in. But your main host this evening is one of our co-organizers for these events, and someone who's actually been very involved in making sure this and other events that we have put on and we put on takes place. So I'm going to hand you over to Zora. But sorry, before I do, DJ Supreme, you've got your hand up. Hello, DJ Supreme, are you there? Okay. It sounds like maybe it's a rogue hand, so we will come back to that later on. So as I say, I'm going to hand you over to Zora to introduce herself and to tell you to take us into the topic. Zora.
All right, thank you very much, Clive. And thank you for allowing me to raise what I consider to be quite an important subject. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I wear a number of hats. Several years ago, in fact, a couple of decades ago, I trained as a sexual health practitioner. And part of my role was to offer advice to middle-aged women on contraception, family planning, and really to look around the sort of hormonal systems that really affect both men and women, as well as to give family planning advice. Now, women in terms of the menopause tend to take the stage, and we're very vocal, certainly in recent times. Our concerns around the ailments and the hormonal changes that we go through collectively as women has really sort of been championed, and in terms of the press, it's had a lot of press, a lot of support, and women seem to be able to be signposted quite easily where they should go, what they should do in order to relieve some of the symptoms. Now, it dawned on me when we were looking at the agenda for this year that we really needed to focus on men's health, and it seemed appropriate for me to look at and discuss in more detail sort of men who the equivalent of the menopause for men is essentially the andropause. And several years ago, I hadn't even heard of it actually. And for a lot of people, they giggle when they talk about the midlife crisis and what some men experience. And for me, I thought, let me use this as an opportunity to discuss it in more detail, because it can be a very serious issue for some men who are at this stage in their life. And I thought this this month was a perfect opportunity to look at it in more detail. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and all things being well, it will behave today. It has misbehaved in the past. So I shall just bring up the presentation. So all things being well, you're able to see my screen. Can you see my screen? Can I hear something?
No.
Not yet.
No,
Not yet.
sorry.
All right, okay, let's try again. It has a habit of misbehaving, so share screen. All right, you should be able to see the screen. Okay.
We can now.
Got it now.
Do you want to do the, oh, yeah.
All right, okay. So I'm not an active sexual health practitioner now, but I am drawing on my previous experience in my previous lives of when I was actively working as a sexual health practitioner. Most of my early experience was in Manchester. I worked for the University Hospital Trust, South Manchester Community Hospital Trust, and worked at many of their clinics associated with the university at the time. So that's me. You're welcome to ask any questions or raise your hands as I'm going through the presentation. Please feel free to do so. And I should also mention that my two co-hosts this afternoon will be Clive. All things being well, Clive will be sharing on his lived experience. And my other co-host will be Zora Johnson, who also happens to be my sister, just in case you wondered what the similarities are in our surnames. So let me just minimize my screen. Now, I don't want any gents on the call to be getting body envy. So the plan is not to make you feel any lesser than you are. But yeah, you can see that this gentleman here, he's got a silver beard, but he's got the body of an athlete. So when we're looking at the definition of the male andropause, it isn't a one singular symptom sort of phenomenon. There are a collection of symptoms that men may actually come across, and these symptoms tend to start or gradually become introduced somewhere around 45, between 45 and 55. Men may notice a gentle change in their sense of self, and it may well be coupled with fatigue, a decrease in their libido, and this is as a result of a gradual decline in their testosterone levels. They might also come across other symptoms with their mood. That may swing, and they may become more irritable than they usually are. They may also notice a loss of muscle mass and a reduced ability to exercise. And we all know, ladies, when we're going through the menopause, the fat in our bodies has redistributed, and it moves away from our thighs to our belly, from our belly to our thighs. In the case of men, the fat redistributes around their stomachs. And if they are drinkers, again, this can be accentuated. They may also develop something what we call man boobs, and the technical word for that is gynecomastia, and that is where, as a result of the imbalance of the hormones, men can develop fatty tissue around their chest, and it might present as if they've got man boobs. Now, men do get breast cancers as well. So if you find that you've got any unusual lumps or bumps appearing when you are in the shower or when you're examining yourself, it is definitely worth getting this checked out, because men do get breast cancer. You also might find that coupled with all your low libido and your lack of energy, you actually have a genuine lack of enthusiasm or energy about life. Life itself becomes a challenge. You might find, coupled with that you're expressing feelings of insomnia, poor concentration, and poor short-term memory. Doesn't mean to say that you're getting Alzheimer's, it just means that your body is changing. Now, there is a short video I'd like to share with you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Clive is going to share his. And this is really a summary of the symptoms that you might be experiencing. And I thought it was worth sharing. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Clive?
Sorry, bear with me a second. Let me just find the video.
You'll have to share your screen.
I'm conscious of that. Yeah, I shall be with you in a moment.
Would you like me to do it?
Sorry. Right, can you see that?
Yes, you can.
Yes, we can.
Widen the screen. Thank you.
Okay.
For watching You and Me this morning. I'm Jean Sparrow.
And turn the sound up if you can.
Sorry, let me stop sharing for a minute so I can just get.
Share your sound.
Yeah, let me just get the sound sorted out. Bear with me a second.
Watching You and Me this morning. I'm Jean Sparrow, and it's time for us to talk intimate relationships. And you know what that means. That means Dr. Rachel Ross is with us. Hello and good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm great.
So we were having a little chit chat, and this is what we're going to talk about today is that chit chat. Male menopause?
Yes.
There is such a thing.
There is such a thing. Believe it or not. You know, we thought it stopped at midlife crises, but there is male menopause. We call it andropause. And basically what causes it is, you know, the male hormone is testosterone. Strong. As time goes by, those testosterone levels can dip and decline, and that causes the male version of menopause.
Now, is it as obvious for men as it is in women? Because we all know about hot flashes and, you know, night sweats and all that other stuff. Is it the same for guys?
Yeah, believe it or not, men actually can get hot flashes.
Stop.
Yes. But their big things are, one, they start to get the beer belly. Beer belly around here, and no matter what they try, they can't lose it. Then two, they start to get very irritated, you know, irritated at the slightest things. And then three, their sex life decreases, and they might start to have some erectile problems.
Oh my. So how do we address these issues for our guys?
Yeah. So if a guy that you know are having any problems with any of the above mentioned things, you know, there's actually questionnaires that you can take that says, you know, do you have testosterone deficiency, which would be causing male menopause? So then if they do, then you take them to the doctor. They will actually draw your testosterone levels, and if they're low, we can actually give testosterone creams and gels to supplement
the same way that women take estrogen.
Exactly.
Man, that's so simple. And at what age does this happen for the guys?
Late 40s, early 50s.
Oh, same as women.
Same as women. And you know, if your guy all of a sudden is starting to be really irritable,
and he's easygoing.
Yep. Now he doesn't want to have sex as much as he used to. And then when he does, he might even have some difficulty maintaining erections during sex. These are all signs that let me get his testosterone levels checked and his prostate.
How do you tell them that though? Like, what's the gentle way to do it? Because with us, there's a process. I mean, it's pretty obvious when it happens in a woman, but for a guy, what do you say if you notice that?
You know, you say to him, say, babe, have you been to the doctor yet this year? Because men don't go as much as we do. You know, we have to go for pap smears and everything. They need yearly checkups just as much. And then when he's finally decided to go that day of the appointment, give him a list of things you want him to ask the doctor about. So he can take that with him, or you can go with him and make sure that it gets addressed.
All righty.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Any other tips on dealing with your partner when they're going through that, like once they get diagnosed and treated?
Sure. You know, being patient. That's the big thing, is be patient with someone, because yes, life is stressful. People are losing their jobs. Work is stressful. And then all of a sudden you have a hormone deficiency and the hormones just set things off. So this is the thing, if you have an easygoing guy and all of a sudden he's uptight over everything, don't just assume it has something to do with you. Is it me? No, it might be him.
It's not always about you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Ross. And if you have any questions for her, you can always give us a line, or drop us a line rather, at WCIU.com. And still ahead on You and Me this morning, Janet Jackson is speaking out and placing blame in the death of her brother Michael.
Thank you.
That's it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let's stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know who's out there, viewing options. Okay, what I'd like to do at this stage, before I move on with the presentation, is just to ask any of the audience whether or not any of those symptoms ring a bell. When I first started looking at it, I thought
Hello, and welcome everyone.
Sorry.
My name's Richard Levin.
Do you want to switch it off completely?
Yes. No, carry on. Sorry.
All right, okay. As I was saying, I'm just going to share my screen again. What I'd like to do is for any individuals in the audience, especially men, who want to share in the chat whether or not they were familiar with any of the symptoms that came up. Irritability, hot flushes, they call it flashes in America. Whether or not the presence of an unwanted beer belly appeared and they couldn't shift it, whether or not loss of energy is something that has crept up, and again, something that is quite unfamiliar to them. So if they could either put their hands up or put it in the chat, whether or not they've noticed any physiological changes. For the ladies, you might want to put in the chat that you've noticed these changes in your partners if you actually have one. Could you just do that now for me, please? Right, I can't see any hands going up as such. Co-host Marcy, can you see any hands going up?
Not yet, no.
There aren't any hands, but
anything in the chat? Oh,
No,
there's
nothing
something
yet.
in the chat.
nothing as yet.
None yet.
Let me say then, because I am kind of not within that typical age group that has been identified, but I'm a little bit beyond it. So, but I mean, I don't know if it's the same thing, but I certainly noticed in recent times that late afternoon, I have this tendency to sort of doze off after dinner. It may just
too full.
so it may just be and I don't know that I feel fatigued in the way that has been described, but it may be I certainly feel, but I think it might be something to do with you know, they talk about having a siesta in the afternoon. It may be that I'm more wanting that, not I don't usually get it, but wanting to sort of rest in the afternoon, more of a morning person now. I don't know whether that's in any way connected with that. Probably not at all.
I think for a lot of men, it is around the beer belly that suddenly arrives out of nowhere. And it's a sudden shift in this weight that migrates around the abdomen. Now, when weight tends to do that, it can cause some other medical complications around cardiac disease, around cholesterol, around diabetes, for example. So all of these key indicators can be a cause of other things that are going on. So it's really, really important that if you're a man and you're listening, or if you're a woman who's got a partner and you notice these changes, these are some of the key factors you need to be aware of. So once upon a time, people used to say it was a myth. Yeah, it's not true. The andropause doesn't exist. Well, as you can tell from that short clip, it clearly does. And normally it is as a result of a drop in testosterone. And in women, it's estrogen, which is a dominant hormone. In men, it's when the testosterone drops. And the only way to actually get a true analysis of whether or not a man's testosterone levels have fallen outside the usual normal healthy range, the only way to determine that is whether or not a blood test is done. Now, these tests are very, very simple. If you are a man and you're watching and you're wondering, oh, you know, what do I need to do? Invariably, whenever these red flags come up, it's really important that you don't dwell on it. I'm not suggesting that you go to your doctor for at the drop of a hat for absolutely everything that goes on, but usually these red flags are triggers. Testosterone contributes to bone density, as it does in women. It contributes to your sense of libido and your sexual drive. For men who have too much of it, obviously it can cause other problems at the other end of the spectrum. But if you're a normal healthy male, you do need to have a dose that sort of ambles along in the middle so that you don't feel these symptoms over a period of time. So in men, they recommend, or the analysis is that there is a steady decline of up to 2% a year on year, from the age of between 30 to 40. This in itself is not likely to cause any problems. However, over a period of, as I've already said, in life, over a period of time, what can actually happen is that you get this phenomenon, or this onset of hypogonadism, which can be responsible for some of the symptoms, but in many cases the symptoms are nothing to do with hormones. As I said, the only way to determine whether or not you've got it or not is a simple blood test. And if you're going to go along and have your PSA levels checked for the presence of whether or not you've got an enlarged prostate that could be cancerous or not, you might want to mention to your doctor, is it worth me having my levels of testosterone measured at the same time? Because all they'll do, they'll just, you know, take some blood in another vial. So when I talk about hypogonadism, I'm basically talking about this phenomenon where men can develop what looks like female breasts. So we talked about body envy, and I don't know if there are any men out there who've got bodies that look like this. I've been told that this requires a workout of several hours per week, per day, per week rather, in order to achieve it. Now, the moment you stop, if your hormones are out of sync, your body will look very, very different. So when we're looking at personal or lifestyle, quite often these can be the key drivers. We talked about a low testosterone having an impact on a man's ability to perform in the bedroom. Now, again, what needs to be identified or not disclosed or ruled out. You need to rule out whether or not diabetes is type 2 or even type 1 could be the underlying factor, and whether or not there's any evidence of prostatism, and that is where we refer to the gland that sits at the base of the bladder, whether or not that is enlarged. Stress, certainly we've gone through the last 18 months of the most stressful time, probably in peacetime. But stress can come in many forms. It could be relating to your job, it could relate to your relationship, it could relate to all manner of things. Depression, anxiety, any other relationship issues may well flag up. Now, divorce is a big key factor in driving up levels of stress, or any kind of stress in relationships where there could be possibly a separation of assets, or where you live or how you live. These sort of things are likely to drive your stress levels up. Money, again, some people are entering into early retirement. We've now got COVID has caused lots of people to lose their jobs. Many people probably had money worries before all of these activities came along. And then we have our aging parents. Aging parents or children not being able to leave home, staying with us as adult parents for longer than we had originally expected, or moving out and needing to come back home for a short period of time. And you've got all of these adults with very different ways of living all under one roof. All of that can be very, very stressful. And finally, what tends to happen with men who are going through the andropause, they begin to feel as if they're stuck in a rut. They've gotten to a stage in life. What the hell is life about? And how can they get out of it? How can they bring the energy? How can they bring the excitement back into their lives? Many of us wake up in the morning and we look in the mirror, and sometimes we do or we don't recognize the image that is looking back on us. Many individuals think, well, this is the only opportunity I'm going to get to change where I'm at. I'm not going to be able to get another crack at it. Now is the time to jump ship. Now's the time to do what I want to do. The children have left home. I've done my bit. Now it's my time. So other things that might impact, we talked about lack of sleep. We talked about diet. Diet, again, is a key indicator, and it's really, really important to be looking at the way that you eat. The last 6 months or so, I've changed my diet and it's worked incredibly well. Looking at the way you eat and what you eat is of huge value. I'm doing something called intermittent fasting, where I essentially eat one main meal a day. And I think if you're a man and you're putting on the extra pounds and you're not exercising as much as you could do, it may well be that you look at the way that you're eating and when you're eating to see if that's going to help. Obviously, you might be drowning your sorrows in too much drink. Alcohol's got lots of sugar. Alcohol goes into your gastrointestinal system. Your liver converts it. It considers it as a toxin, and it converts it into sugars. So again, these are all unwanted sugars, whether or not you're a wine drinker or a beer drinker. You might want to consider how much alcohol intake that you're taking. If you're smoking, again, these are key indicators that are, if you are a man in your 50s and beyond, you might want to consider reducing. I know to say to a lot of individuals to give up is very difficult, but it may well be that reducing your smoking rather than giving up is a good start, or even switching to vaping. Now, I don't know a great deal about vaping, but my understanding is that the risks to you as an individual are halved, if not more than that, by switching to vaping. Now, obviously, low testosterone might mean that you can feel very low about yourself in terms of your level of self-esteem. And for some individuals, even the thought of death and dying and having suicidal thoughts can have a great impact on the way that you live your life. And obviously, these are all driven by the fact that you've got low testosterone levels in your body. So when we're actually talking about midlife crisis, the definition of it is that it's actually a transition of the identity and the self-confidence of an individual. Usually, typically, this occurs between 45 to 65 years old. There is a psychological crisis as well as a physical one. And again, this is fueled by events that bring to light someone's age, mortality, and sometimes even the fact that there are things that you still want to accomplish in your life and feel like time's running out and there is little time to do it. So this is where the crisis comes. You're thinking to yourself, well, it's taken me 40 years to get to this point where you've been working your socks off, and you've not quite accomplished the things that you've wanted to do. You're probably thinking, if God's good to you and if life's good to you, you might have another 20 or 30 years, and then wondering, will you be able to accomplish the things that you wanted to, knowing that at this end of the scale, all the other physical things that might crop up in your life that might prevent you from doing that. So typically there are 7 signs when a man might be going through a midlife crisis. You might identify with some of these, you might not. It would be interesting if you could put in the chat whether or not you identify with any of the symptoms. So most people genuinely think of the symptoms of midlife crisis as a man having an affair, buying a sports car, wearing a toupee, and these are all typically cliche signs. Here are some of the real signs that you might want to look out for, in addition to some of the cliche ones that might the man in your life might be contemplating. Right, okay, so we're talking about the sports car, using all his retirement money to buy the sports car. Is he having a midlife crisis? I don't believe he is. However, one of the key signs is usually boredom and irritability. When we looked at the video, the doctor mentioned that a man might particularly become very irritable. Now, if you've got a gentleman in your life who this isn't his natural nature, this might be a sign that these are one of the key triggers and the first signals that maybe the menopause or the andropause is brewing under the surface. They may feel unfulfilled, they might express a sense of boredom. And for someone who wouldn't normally voice their concerns around boredom, you're beginning to find that they're expressing these, and they may even go off and do something considered to be off the wall for them. They might talk about wanting more time with their male friends, going clubbing and going out on adventures, etc., where once upon a time there would have been men who would have come home, been very content with a home life environment. Now, when I was reading this, I had to smile because I have a couple of friends whose husbands in their mid-50s are more frequently going off for golf weekends, more frequently going off to salsa at nights, and they don't want their wives along, they want to go along as a group of guys. And I have to smile because I just feel that they're what's the word? They're just hanging on and ring fencing this time as mature men, but they don't want their wives coming along, where they don't want their wives coming along to their golf weekends. You know, they really want to have that private time that is protected. So I don't know if there's any men in the audience who will have a chat about this later. I can see something coming in the chat. Let's see what's being said. Clive, what's being said in the chat, please? Hello.
What's been said in the chat is what I'm saying.
What is that? Sorry.
So the first point I'm making is that.
Why are you laughing? And you haven't got your screen on.
Okay. Why do you want to see me?
Right, okay, well, you keep chuckling. So,
my first question was, is there a standard level of testosterone for men?
Yes, of course there is.
So what is it?
Well, what's the point of me telling you? I don't know what it is in terms of deciliters or what they're looking for when they do the examination, but there is a threshold and there is always a range. So if you go and have a test of any kind that relates to pathology, if they're looking for, I don't know, your full blood count or, you know, your hormone levels, there will be a range. I don't, not off the top of my head, know what the range is, but if you have the test and you're at the lower end, your doctor will tell you whether or not it's likely to be contributing towards your symptoms. All right. So if you're at the upper end of what is considered to be normal, really you shouldn't be symptomatic. You should be fine, and it could well be that something else is going on that's triggering the mood swings or the sense of depression. There could be lots of other things, because I listed those before.
Okay.
So what were you chuckling about? Sorry.
So I did make a bit of a flippant point, and I won't repeat that one. But the most serious question was, how come at 65 I've not yet had my midlife crisis? Your range went up to 64.
Excuse me. Was that a question or a statement? Sorry.
I said, how come at the age of 65 I've not yet had my midlife crisis?
How do you know? How do you know, Clive? Ask Narissa.
That could well be the case. It could well be the case. And it's very difficult to say. We don't live with you. We see the nice side of you, Clive, you know, when you present here. But if there are any men on the platform who recognize any of the signs, you know, about feeling irritable, you know, are you feeling fulfilled in your life? Children, you know, many of us are empty nesters. And when the process of active parenting moves on, the first challenge is when the children go to university or leave home, and then there's this huge gap, and then you're left with your partner, and you know, you haven't had a chance to really have a relationship with your partner over the years because you've been too busy bringing up the children, and then you have to get to know this person again. And actually, do you actually like that person as much as you did 20 or 30 years before? It may well be that, you know, when you speak to your male friends, often men don't speak about these things, but you know that you're going to get away with not having any pressure. Normally when men are around each other, they do tend to be quite light-hearted about their conversations rather than deep. And, you know, so they know that when they're around their mates, they're going to have a good time. You know, that's what men do, you know, when they get together. Forgive me if I'm making some assumptions here, but isn't that what men do when you get together as a group? You tend to have a more of a light-hearted banter, and when women, we tend to sort of dampen the environment, so to speak. Is that correct? Do we have any gentlemen who want to say yes or no? I mean, I don't want to whiz off and make any assumptions. Anyone got their hands up who wants to comment? Anyone got their hands up, Marcia?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
It looks like I am the only gentleman on this webinar.
I think you've got others that are just a bit shy.
Yes, this is your opportunity. There are, let me have a quick look at the screen. Let me see whose names I can see. Right, so we have got DJ Supreme. I'm assuming that's a gentleman. We have, we've got a gentleman who's come on the screen. Welcome. You can see a gentleman in a white shirt. Don't know who that is. Is there a name there?
His name is George.
All right, let's put
I
the
don't know.
question to George. Oh, I thought he was moving actually, but it's a picture.
A profile picture.
All right, and we had our friend who joined us at the very beginning. Is it Femi? Femi, are you still there?
Yeah.
Hello, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm there. I'm here.
Wonderful, wonderful. How is some of these scenarios resonating with you?
Well, I said earlier that I hadn't seen any of the signs yet, so
wonderful.
we are still watching out.
You're still holding out. Marvelous. Well, at least you now know what to look for, and when it arrives, if it arrives, what you could be doing next. Okay.
Yeah, but Zora, like you said earlier, maybe you have to ask the missus rather than asking me.
You want to know if they say uncle's a bit more miserable than he used to be, or I'm sorry, I can't remember whether or not you said you were in a relationship or not. Do you have a partner with you? Femi? Hello?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm married.
Oh, you're married, so I'm sure
Yes, I am.
your dear other half will be picking up on these nuances and dropping some clues as to any possible changes in your personality.
Well, not really. She's not here.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess that says it all then, doesn't it, really? Well,
And I think George may be able to contribute a bit now. George joined recently. I think I saw his name there.
yeah,
He
and
invited,
there is an egg.
invited me. Yeah.
Hi, George.
Good evening. I
Welcome.
missed the talk. I'm just joining. I've been driving for quite a while.
Right,
So
okay.
the topic is quite important and very apt at this time because of the ages that we're in.
Right,
I asked my wife, she's a GP. I
right.
said, oh, there's this Zoom meeting on Andropause. What does she have to say? She said, just it's an irrelevant topic. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, that's exactly what it means. And I asked her, have you had any patients? Of course, I have to be confidential in what I say. Have you had any patients that have come to you with that kind of condition? She said, yeah, but not as with women folk. So it's not something that the NHS really considers or worries about.
Wow. Well,
This
I mean,
morning.
that's
And,
disappointing. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's it. When you're talking to your partner on this sort of sensitive things, you can only get the right information from a non-relative, if you know what I mean. But with our doctors, their training is such that you don't treat your family members, you don't discuss such sensitive things. I said, okay, well, I didn't go further because I wanted to ask her, okay, have you noticed any changes in me? And if so, what and what? So I'm thinking, am I changing? Like Femi said, I haven't seen any changes. Maybe I get tired, but then again, it comes with age. Maybe I get the odd aches. I don't know whether it's andropause, but I'm still as active as ever. And so I'm wondering what sort of signs, what sort of things point you that, okay, maybe you're going through this. And we joke at home. When she has one issue or the other, I say, oh, maybe it's menopause. So we hear more of menopause. We don't hear anything about andropause.
Yeah, well,
So I thought this would be quite interesting.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. I'm very disappointed that your wife has been so dismissive because, and that is why men aren't coming forward, and they're unlikely to come forward if they're likely to get that kind of response. Because, you know, whilst women are very vocal, and yes, we have taken the menopause very, very seriously, and we're now flying the banner, and there's so many ways that you can get information. I think it has overwhelmed and almost bypassed the andropause. And there are men suffering out there. There are men who are undergoing physiological change.
Maybe the men are not coming out.
Well,
and if they don't come,
well, they won't come anyway. They wouldn't come if they had a common cold. So you're not going to get them coming forward if they're feeling depressed, at their wits' end, if they're experiencing libido. Invariably, what would happen is if you've got a female partner, she'll bring it to your attention, saying maybe you're a bit more miserable. Have you noticed how irritable you get over little and nothing? And there could be other things going on, as I've already mentioned, stress, bereavement. The last 18 months has been extraordinary. You might have,
we've all been there.
Indeed, you might have aged parents that you're now having to manage and look after, children at university that you're having to pay for, grandchildren who are now turning up. You know, many of us are going through quite a number of things in our lives, but I do believe that you know, the male menopause mustn't be brushed to one side. They should be taken quite seriously, and men should be supported in any of the symptoms that they're experiencing. So we've got an Ed. Ed, are you there?
Thank you.
Thanks very much, George. Ed, are you there?
Hi, Zora. Yes, I am here. It's your old friend.
Ah!
Just got your message, so I had to quickly log on and just listen through. So I've actually just jumped on the call last 5 to 7 minutes. So
wonderful.
I'll just,
I saw you recently, and you certainly didn't look as if you were going through anything. But having said that, you know, it was a special occasion. It was your birthday, and you had the joys of life. But in terms of other issues around physiological changes, have you noticed anything over the years, the last 5 years or so?
obviously hair loss. Hair loss is one of the obvious ones, but otherwise I try to keep my my energy going by trying to keep fit and you know and try and you know, stay healthy. But like the other gentleman said, I think it will come down to our partners to be the judge of that and see if we've become more sensitive to issues, or we have, you know, we've changed in certain ways. So yes, that's just a short take on it from me, I'm afraid.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm so pleased you're here. Thank you so much. I'm just going to minimize my screen if I can and continue. Right, how do we do this? Okay, then. We talked about some of the signs. Where was I a minute ago? Right, let's see if we can go back on the slides. Right. Okay, let's just go back. Right, so the second sign, the first one is usually boredom. Second sign is making rash financial decisions. You might find, for whatever reason, I just showed you a picture of the car earlier, hanging on to the opportunity or the ability to do something for you. And suddenly some men might want to splurge on an expensive item or even several items exhibiting irrational behaviors. This can even happen when the finances aren't healthy. And again, trying to explain to them that, you know, now is perhaps not a good time to be buying a Rolex when it's only a watch. Now might not be a good time to be trading in the old banger that could get you from A to B now for something, you know, like an SUV, and you know, adding on expenses that are irrational at this stage in your lives. Some men might suddenly decide they want a new career, do the dream job. I mean, why wait? I think the last year and a half has shown us that life can be short. And so if you've got a gentleman in your life, ladies, who's, you know, saying, you know, I always wanted to be that farmer when he's only ever worked in this city, it may well be a sign that, you know, something's going on. To your partner, it won't be seen as a rash decision. It may well be something that he kept under the radar for quite some time, and he has been planning how is it that he's going to make the jump. He may have kept the cards close to his chest and just thought that, you know, when the time's right, I'm just going to do it. If he's made his money, if he's successful and money is not an issue, and you haven't got the massive mortgage around your head, you might find that your partner says, you know, I think I'm going to go and work for the post office. I've always wanted to deliver letters, and, you know, I've always wanted a job in the outside. So wait for it, ladies. So any gents who are considering a dream job, this could be something on the horizon. Oops, let me just go back one. Right, my dear friend mentioned hair loss. For some men, they associate their masculinity with their hair and how much of it. And certainly they might consider the presence of their hair as a sense of their virility. For some, it can throw them into a mini crisis. I have to say, for most men of color who shave off all their hair, it is incredibly attractive. However, they may feel quite vulnerable, let's say, not realizing that, you know, to have little hair is much more attractive. For some men in some cultures, you might find them wearing a toupee, and this toupee is often pretty obvious that it's not their own hair. I think probably the most famous person who did it years ago was Elton John, and he looks quite ridiculous now. And who's the chap who's just gone up to the moon, who's 90 years old, and it's got a full head of hair, and he's had a hair transplant, and you can see it just looks bizarre on a 90-year-old man. But yeah, hair loss can throw some men into a bit of a crisis. The fifth sign, engaging in extreme sports, suddenly not being satisfied with the old banger. He might want a little bit of adventure, a little bit of speed, start doing death-defying things such as a Harley Davidson, investing in motorbikes, things that make a lot of noise, things that go fast. All of these sort of things are normally signs that they want to be seen. They don't want to just fade into the distance. Compromise is often the only way you can get a chap who's got this on his mind, that this is what he wants to do. But like anything, compromise is often the only way forward. The sixth sign is sadly the affair. Invariably, I don't believe that a lot of men go out to explore. Often the opportunity arrives on their doorstep, but rather than ignore it and maintain a sense of fidelity, they take a risk. Now, it could well be that the attention and the giving between the two of the individuals in relationship stops. The feeling of being desirable ceases, and eyes begin to wander. Invariably at this stage in a man's life, and a woman's life for that matter, their desire for attention or attraction to the other sex invariably can become much stronger. And it could be linked to the fear or the ability to be attractive or sexy. And we know much of that is hormonally driven. So that might be one of the other signs. And finally, the seventh sign, so that's the extramarital affair, is the taking up of I'm talking about excessive drinking, or what we call recreational drugs, which might actually lead to substance misuse. Many men might feel the need to experience new things or to do what they consider to be exciting things that they used to do. It might include drugs and alcohol. Now, in your younger years, your body's ability to absorb that, to destroy it using your liver and bouncing back would be much more effective. When you're older, it takes a lot more time to bounce back. But again, when people have got excessive finances, recreational drugs are certainly something that individuals are beginning to experiment with. And I can say that as an ex-practice nurse. I used to have quite a lot of individuals come to my surgery with wounds that needed dressing, and these individuals were trying to maintain a respectable existence, and the recreational drugs had then led to drugs that required injecting. And what these guys were doing, they were injecting into veins that couldn't be seen. So they were, after they'd collapse the veins in their arms, they would turn to veins in their groins. And when those veins collapse, they would turn to veins around their ankles. And these were all areas that can't be seen once you're fully dressed. And it's because of recreational drugs that started off as a gentle habit and then exceeded into something else. So there are many individuals holding down full-time jobs, still experimenting in these kind of lifestyles. But ladies, it doesn't have to be disastrous. There's things that you can say and do, and soothing words that you can say to your male counterpart. The most important thing to do is to remind them that he's not alone, and be supportive and patient. I think for those of you that were on the call at the beginning where you saw the video, one of the recommendations from the doctor was to be very, very supportive and just be there to listen. He'll understand your pains in terms of the menopause if you can equally understand his pains as he's going through the andropause. When the time's passed, he will appreciate you, and you should be able to appreciate him, especially if you've stood by him throughout the whole ordeal. Ladies, I'm not sure if you want men like that. So in terms of symptom management, what do we need to do? How do we need you to take action? Well, we talk about this all the time, but it is about developing a relationship with your GP. COVID has changed the dynamics between GPs and their patients, but at the end of the day, they should still be accessible. In the video, the doctor recommended taking a list of things to your doctor, just so that you don't forget to mention them whilst you're there. Doctors on average have something like between 8 and 10 minutes per patient. So the speed that they see you, whilst they might appear to be very hurried, they have 8 minutes to listen to you, to get to the nub of what it is that you've come to them for, and do their best to assimilate what they believe it is that you need in order to send you on to have an examination or a specialist test. Okay, so it's very, very likely that you'll need to have a blood test. Don't be alarmed, all right? If there are extreme deficiencies which indicate that you may well have low testosterone levels, your GP should be recommending that you see an endocrinologist. Don't be frightened by that term. An endocrinologist is a specialist who deals with hormones, and definitely the best person for you to speak to. Once your referral has gone through, it's likely after you've had a chat with this individual that they will recommend testosterone. Now, usually it takes a while, as it does with the estrogen pill or the HRT. You will need to take the therapy for a given period of time. And this is because you will need your blood plasma levels to raise to a particular level where it becomes therapeutic. Once it becomes therapeutic, then you have regular tests to ensure that the therapeutic levels maintain within a given range, you should see some relief of your symptoms. You also need to be looking at your lifestyle. We talk about the last 18 months, many of us have adopted bad habits. If you can exercise on a regular basis, it's going to be to your benefit. And I'm not talking about lifting. In this video picture, this guy's got 20 kilos on each arm. I'm not talking about those sorts of exercise. I'm talking about gentle exercise that you can do around the block, wherever you live. Go out for 10, 15 minutes a day. I've mentioned to you about losing weight and intermittent fasting, or ways of eating that will help you to reduce weight and maintain it. You know, losing weight or maintaining new stable weight shouldn't cause you anxiety and shouldn't cause you pain. It's just adapting your body to different ways of eating within a given time period. If you're smoking, it's always recommended that you reduce your smoking or switch to vaping, which I've been told is a much healthier option. Also, don't forget that if you're going to make a change, make it and try and stick to it. Stop the search for happiness. You know, I think if anything has been taught to us since COVID, that, you know, happiness exists in you. Once your therapeutic levels in terms of your hormone replacement therapy is introduced, your search for happiness internally and externally should be resolved. Try and meditate. Meditating is not an easy act. Some of us do have to learn how to do it. Once you've gotten the knack, it is hugely beneficial, and you will actually learn to practice gratitude whilst you're meditating and develop an abundant mindset. All of these three things really go together. Pursue your passion. Did you ever have a passion? If you didn't, perhaps it's worthwhile you thinking about reigniting or developing a passion. The passion should be yours and not necessarily anything that is shared with anyone else. Give yourself a realistic goal, whether or not it's to do more exercise, lose weight, start something new. And social media, which has become such a huge part of our lives, try and limit how much exposure you have to it. If it's something that you do all day, every day, and it's part of your job, well, that's understandable. But for most of us, I have to say, we have a habit of reaching out and picking up our phones and looking at it 2 or 3 times an hour, never mind a day. So perhaps those are some of the strategies that you can put into place. So we talked about meditating and being still, and I know that for a lot of men of colour, meditating isn't something that they're very familiar with, but there are many portals out there. You can go on YouTube, many portals for Black men to meditate with other Black men and to do it online, or find just a local group of individuals that you can meditate and be still with, something that you can all do collectively. And don't forget to laugh as much as humanly possible. Think of life as a party. The past year has definitely shown us that we have a great deal to be thankful for. So good news, there's a chap who in his 40s, certainly Mr. McDonald, just after his 44th birthday, he developed or purchased his first McDonald. Now that was all around the act of, he didn't set out to set up McDonald's. He was basically into property and buying estates. The other chap, Sam Walton, founded Walmart when he was 44, and Harland Saunders at 65 first sold his Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise. So no matter what age you are, every day provides you with a new opportunity to do something new. We can't stop the inevitable, we're all going to die. The question is, what are you going to do whilst you're alive? Life is precious, and a midlife crisis in you or any other man isn't the end. And so we have our friend here, Christodophilus, or whatever his name was, and that's the end. So there's just a couple of references that I drew on in order to develop the slide deck that are there on the screen. So this is over to you now, people. Who do we have in the room?
You're still sharing.
I'll stop my sharing. Thank you. Right. Okay.
Well, shall we go to the chat? Because I think
all right,
Marcy's probably got some items in the chat.
All right.
Right. One of the questions, can you hear me? One of the questions that came up was what percentage of men are likely to go through the andropause phase?
Well, I don't have any data purely because it's not something that is spoken about freely, openly, and honestly. And I think the data that is there can only be captured from those individuals, A, who go to the doctor feeling like pants, or from individuals who've had their testosterone levels captured. And as one of our callers mentioned earlier on, even his wife, who was a GP, and he asked her about it, she said, you know, she was quite dismissive about it, which is a real shame. So if doctors are dismissive about it, how is that going to help any man who's got concerns about his health, if he's likely to be dismissed? So I don't have any data, sorry.
Sorry,
Okay.
Zora, can I just correct that so that
Yeah.
you don't think our GPs are like that?
No, I'm sure.
It's just a conversation we had this morning.
She's
not dismissive. She does have male patients,
right.
and they come with their issues, sensitive and confidential matters. But it's just maybe because it was coming from me. I said, what do you think about andropause? It's an understated fact. Maybe she hasn't seen any of her patients mention that bit. But of course, there are other issues that if it's picked up, she does all the referral and everything. So I would say she's dismissive. Maybe she was dismissive because it was me. Yeah. But if it was a patient, she wouldn't do that.
Yes. In fact, I'm just quickly Googling it now, because you see, the thing is, even when you Google it, a lot of it says, is the male menopause real? Most of it is it a myth or is it a reality? And I think for some women who are going through the menopause, you know, they think that we can't even have the menopause for us. Men have got to jump on the bandwagon and have something for them. So let me just see if I can see any stats here. But yeah, I'll see if I can Google. It's not coming up with any stats so far.
There are some other questions though, Zora, whilst you're doing that, so maybe you can come back to that. Marcia's got some other questions, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, I can read out what Clive has written, where he says that the new car could be a way to attract a younger woman, especially if your body is not enough of an attraction as it would have been when you were younger.
So what's the question? As in,
well, there's no question. It's his statement that perhaps the car is the reason for the buying the car is because they can't attract the women with just their bodies, so they go for the car to yeah. I think he's just been a bit facetious, but it might be real, you know, who knows?
No, since I did put a point there, let me just make the observation. I'm saying that when you consider the subject, it may be that one of the things that the men are looking at is that actually the reason maybe that my libido is a bit low is because I probably I'm stuck in a bit of a rut, and if I get myself a younger model beside me, then I'm actually going to get myself out of it, and the car is going to be my way of attracting that, because I don't have the body any longer. So how am I going to do it? I mean, some people might flout a lot of money around in other ways, and they might even buy that Rolex watch that you were talking about. Actually, it's my way of actually creating the attractiveness that I once had naturally.
All right, so let me see how old this document is. There's an abstract, and it says the prevalence of hypogonadism, which is what I talked about that men get, coupled with testosterone, is 3.1 to 7% in men aged between 30 to 69 years old, and 18.4% in men older than 70. The prevalence of symptomatic androgen deficiency in men is aged between 30 to 79 years old is 5.6. So European male aging study, the prevalence is on average 2.1% as being assessed by low testosterone and the presence of all three sexual symptoms. So it's still relatively low if you think about it, given how many men are in the population. So we know that out of a population of 67 million, half the population are individuals of 50 and above. So that's 33 and a bit million of men who are particularly in this age group. So then you're looking at a further 2.1% of those potentially having a low testosterone level. So that can be probably quite significant. 2.1% of 35 million's what, Clive?
Let's say it's about 1 million.
Okay. No, probably a little bit more than that, I think. A little bit more out of 35. You're probably looking about 3 million, 3.5 million.
No, you said 35 million.
6 million, 6 million.
No, 3% is not 6 million.
Well, 1% is 3, isn't it?
No, 1% is going to be less than 1 million of 35 million.
Oh, I'm not going to argue. I'm not the greatest mathematician.
All
we
right.
do have an accountant on the line. give us a hand, Amadou.
I just say you're both right. Just leave it
right.
I have a question though, Zora.
Okay.
The indicators you pointed out, it's interesting really. Apart from the physical thing, there's this thing peculiar about career change.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And suddenly in my case, I've got to the point where, you know, as an accountant, I've just been around the block so many times that I just find the excitement that was in my career for me, the challenge is not there. And I'm just dealing with people who just, you know, to me, they're not sort of the sort of caliber of accountants I was used to dealing with. And I just felt, what am I doing in this space anymore? And that's where, for me, in my case, genuinely, I just feel I just need a new challenge. But it's more so out of sheer boredom and maybe professional frustration rather than anything else. So what do you think of that?
Well, there could be elements. I mean, you're a youngish, middle-aged man. I say youngish because I don't actually know how old you are. But it's a collection of symptoms, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So boredom is one of the first signs. Now, if you've got a very strong partner, she will listen and she will watch. So that if you then, I don't know, pipe up and say, it's all well and good doing what you're doing, but then if you want to make a drastic switch and let's say moving away from accountancy to something completely different, something that might give you fulfillment and satisfaction, but it might not pay the bills. So this is where the discussion might then come in, you know, is it something much deeper than the job? And it may well be that you've got something on your mind that you've never expressed because you know it might upset her. And so you've held these cards close to your chest. So I suppose it's a number of things, and whether or not it's genuinely the people that you're working with or any other issues going on.
Okay, I'll explore that further, because I think in my case, I've just said to my wife, listen, I'm just bored with accounting, and all accountants get bored after a while. It's normal. I have friends in the profession who just decide, actually, we don't want to do this anymore. But I'd noticed that for a while, that, you know, like when I'm working with younger staff who are just new into the profession, they're excited by things that used to excite me at their stage in their career. So I've just put it down to the fact that you go through this loop, and suddenly mine is not like going to be a Sherpa or a herdsman or something like that. It's just really, I probably would still be an accountant doing something for myself, but in the guise of what I was doing, I don't think the fulfillment will be there. So I get bored invariably if I continue. That's why I'm coming from, really.
Well, I think in your case, it may well be that a lot of us just do the J job, the job that just pays the bills. And if you've got something going on outside your life that might give you the thrill and the fulfillment 2 or 3 times a week, that's maybe where the balance might come in. So you can tolerate the boredom because you know you've got something else to look forward to.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything else to look forward to, it could be something like my ex plays bridge, and he's an international master, and he will travel internationally to play bridge, and that is his passion. And when I first met him, I said to him, I thought I might have a challenge with other women being attracted to you, but I never thought I'd have a challenge with a pack of cards. And his passion is bridge, and he is, you know, I don't know anything about it, and it was just one thing. So I call bridge Lady B. So when I say, are you going out with Lady B tonight? I know he's going out, you know, he's going to play bridge. He's not with another woman. It's this, but it's his passion.
Yeah.
And if you have something else that you're passionate about, it makes the day job tolerable.
Yeah, fair point. That's good. But I just thought I'd bring that up because I mean, in my case, I just could not. That symptom just hit me because I find myself at a juncture where, for a while, and I used to say to my friends, I have staff that will come and parade their spreadsheets in front of me, and I have to say to my friends, I have to make it sound exciting because it's the most boring thing you can imagine at this stage in my career. So,
well, I was going to say, from what I know about spreadsheets, they are mighty boring.
Good one. Thank you so much, Joe.
You're welcome.
There are
else
some more questions.
Okay, so the next question is, can the andropause be treated naturally or reversed by using natural remedies?
Right, now, from the limited knowledge I know about testosterone, it is normally a synthetic replacement that needs to be given in a pharmaceutical format. Whereas in estrogen, there are estrogen-based foods and supplements that women can take. I am not aware that testosterone comes in any other form. Now, there are some individuals, athletes, for example, they are often steroidal-based products that can be incredibly damaging. I'm not aware of any natural foods or substances that come in the form of with traces of testosterone in it. It's usually a medication substitute, as far as I'm aware. Because the thing with testosterone, if you get too much of it, you can become super aggressive as well. That's the downside. You've seen what's that character, that Marvel character that used to swell and his clothes used to rip off him? What was his name?
Hulk.
The Incredible Hulk, exactly. Yeah. So people who take too much of it can become super aggressive and not be able to manage them. So men who are predators, let's say, for example, men who predate on children and on women often have too much testosterone, and that is what's the key driver that drives this behavior. So it's really important to get the levels right, because it can tip men over the acceptable behaviors. Any other questions? What's been happening to educate women?
Oh, you read it. We're reading it. Yeah.
No, go on. You do that.
No. What's been happening? This is another question. What's been happening to educate women, such as the doctor mentioned earlier, so that they can themselves be supportive of their men?
Well, it's like most of these health campaigns. Much of it at the moment is DIY. NHS England have a number of strategies where they prioritise screening. Now, the side effect of not having sufficient testosterone is usually symptomatic, but doesn't cause things like cancers. And so NHS England have a strategy, a long-term strategy at the moment, where they're doing lots of screening in order to bring to people's attention the early intervention around cells that might proliferate abnormally in someone's body. Now, this is way down the chain in terms of awareness. And invariably, it's because the government doesn't consider it to be important enough to be higher up on their agenda. So it's usually discussions like this on platforms where people seek it out that raises this awareness. And this is why I brought it to the attention of a wider audience, because it is being overlooked. People, I mean, up until I was invited to talk about this earlier on in the year, I totally forgot from the days of my training when I was training in the 1990s that the Andropause existed, because nobody was talking about it. Still, it's as prevalent, I imagine, as it is for women. Women are just so much more expressive and vocal that I just think, you know, it hasn't been given the time that it needs. Mm-hmm. So ladies, gents, I mean, it's a bit like Errol Mackenzie. We had him on the platform last week. This chap is...
Errol McKellar.
Sorry, McKellar. This is a chap who purely by chance discovered he had prostate cancer. And that was because he was in a surgery when his wife had asked him to go and have his snoring looked into. And as a result of being in the surgery, he saw a pamphlet. The pamphlet recommended that if you were a gentleman, that you should have a simple PSA test done to determine whether or not the presence of cancer was present. And purely by chance, he went through this process and found that he had cancer. And I think it's very much like having this information sitting in doctors' waiting rooms and things, where men and women can have access to the information that is absolutely important. It's all about health advice and health promotion, being in the right place, right time.
Well, there aren't any more questions right now, but Marilyn's got her hand up. So,
okay,
Marilyn, if you unmute.
Yeah, just a very quick one. It was interesting. I was speaking to someone yesterday when we were at the Watford Palace event, and I was saying, well, tomorrow, do make sure you join us. It's about the andropause. And then I took a breath and I said, AKA the male menopause. And they looked at me and said, I had looked at the website a few days ago, actually. I had no idea what andropause meant. So it didn't even occur to them. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those things that and whenever I type it in, when I was doing social media posts, it comes up as a spelling mistake. So even, you know, so my spelling checkers and Google and iOS tech don't recognize that term, and that just then tells me something about if the technology that recognizes everything and listens to every word we say has no idea what this means, then there's still, it seems, a lot of education to be done in the world at large.
And I would agree. And men can be looked over for a number of things, and you know, men in our communities can be sidelined even more when it comes to various disease categories. And all I would say is it's not a myth. For some men, it's a fact. They struggle. They're struggling with the changes. They may not even put it down to the male menopause. They might put it down to a number of other factors going on in their lives, and not actually realize, you know, putting two and two together, that this is what it is. So, gents, over to you. Who do we have in the room? We have 17 people, which is great. Let's just have a look at the gallery. Right, I'm not sure if is a Yinka a man or a woman? Either way, what are your thoughts? Yinka, would you like to unmute yourself? Oh, Have you unmuted everyone?
I can how do you do that? Rename, unmute.
I'd just like to know.
So sorry, there was a problem with my buttons this end. Sorry.
All right, I'm
a female Yinka, even though it's a unisex Nigerian name. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, are you in a relationship, Yinka?
No, I've been separated a while now.
Right. I was going to say, for all the men in your lives, or the men on the call, will you even? Okay, so you may not be suffering with the or symptoms of the menopause. Will you go and have your PSA test done? And it may well be in partnership with having your prostate levels checked in terms of the blood test. Talk about the male menopause. How many of you will do that? Just as a show of hands, or ladies, will you encourage your men to speak about the male menopause when they go to their GPs next? Anyone?
I think George wanted to come in, but I would say that.
Well, they've raised their hands. I don't know if they want to come in.
Nancy,
They've
that's
raised their
great.
hands.
Femi will, lovely. That's good.
Okay. And I would say that I've just had mine done, and we'll be having it done on a regular basis.
What would you like to let the viewers know what you had done? Sorry,
you said the PSA, didn't you?
Well, I said, well, whilst you, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, just for clarity.
Yeah, no. I've recently had my PSA levels tested, and I'm now going to have it monitored on an annual basis, and I'm told that it's a good thing, it's the right thing to do. I've not had my testosterone level tested. I wasn't actually, up until today, I hadn't thought of the relevance of it, but next time I think I'll ask him to do that too.
Yes, indeed. It just may well be a little tweak, but you might turn into the Incredible Hulk, Clive.
Well, I might be able to start life all over again.
Right, okay. We've got George saying he does all the relevant tests, in particular PSA, twice a year. Now that's interesting. I wasn't aware that the screening enabled twice a year. It's usually once a year, isn't it?
He did say other blood tests twice a year. He didn't particularly say the PSA twice a year.
Right, interesting. Yeah, perhaps George, are you there? Would you like to clarify on that? Hi, George.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, the second lady just clarified it for me. Yeah, I do the PSA test.
Yep.
They know me at the GP surgery. And I say, oh, you only just had it in November, so you won't be due until the next November or something.
Yep.
And if there's any concern, then I push them and they send me the blood test form and I go for it. And it comes back okay. But other tests as well, like cholesterol level, diabetes, and what have you, I just make sure I get the GP to tick everything, and I do the blood tests.
You get your money's worth.
Twice a year. Yeah, I get it. And if I don't get it from the NHS, I go private. So it's just necessary once you get to that age. Yeah.
Right. And do you mind me asking how old you are, George? Sorry, George.
I'm 60.
You're 60, a young 60.
You'd like
to...
Yeah, well, I think if you can get through your 50s and 60s unscathed, it's very, very likely that you will reach your 70s in very, very good health.
Amen.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on. I just said amen.
Yeah, well, if you are part of what is known as the vulnerable high risk groups, which a lot of men of color are, for a number of reasons. We are known typically to suffer with hypertension. We're known typically to suffer with high cholesterol levels. We're typically known to develop type 2 diabetes. I'm not quite sure why that is, because much of the research can't actually give any indicators as to why it happens more. There's more prevalence of it in the African and African Caribbean community. So, you do need to be aware that these are some of the key indicators. Now, If you've got a good GP practice, they should be inviting you in for regular screening. The screening should start at 50, especially for the PSA. In a couple of years, it can grow exponentially, and you can have a non-benign tumor that becomes malignant. If it becomes malignant, you've then got secondary cells that will break off and go around your body. Invariably, they will lodge in your pelvis or in your spine or somewhere else in your body. So whilst you're being treated for radiotherapy at the actual site where the enlarged prostate is, invariably that cancer will have broken off into other cells and lodged somewhere else in your body. So do be aware of that. So before we round up, we're coming towards the end of the session. Is there anybody else that wants to share any experiences of what they believe may be the male menopause, funny or otherwise? Is there anyone who's traded in their life savings for a Harley Davidson and exchanged the old banger for something that might attract a young lady of considerable younger years? You might want to admit to it or not, as the case may be.
No, they just become grumpy old men after that.
They become what, like Victor Meldrew?
Yeah.
Right.
I like that one.
Yeah, indeed. So we had a chap called Des. It might be your friend again, Clive, who has joined the session.
More than likely.
More than likely. Is there anything else? Any questions that anybody want to share? Thanks, Marilyn. Yes, I am a lot better. Thank you. It exists, and I don't think there's a lot of shame that is impressed upon our men whenever they express signs or symptoms of becoming unwell. And I think as a people and as a culture, we have to dispel that. And we've got to move away from what is considered to be a shame if you express feelings of being unwell. It's part of life, and I think the public, the expectation is that Black people, can't become sick. Certainly, if you're a Black man, you certainly can't ever become sick, because this level of strength and pride and everything else that gets wrapped up with being a Black man is something that is often taken out of our hands. And I think if you are having these symptoms and you're suffering silently and quietly, it's important that you come forward and hold your hand up if you've got a GP or anybody else. I had a friend whose husband needed bilateral hip replacements, and for many years he was in so much pain that by the time he went to the doctor and said, look, the pain is extraordinary, by this time he developed a distinctive limp. One of his legs was probably about 2 inches shorter than the other. And when they took the x-rays, they basically said, every step you take is like a woman who is going through pregnancy. And if you've never been pregnant and you're a man, and even if you have and you're a woman, you'll know what the contractions were like in terms of the level of pain. Now, eventually I convinced my dear friend to escort her husband to the GP surgery and basically just to sit there and hold his hand. She was determined it was something that he should be able to do without her. And I had to bring to her attention the fact that he actually could be quite concerned, that as big and as mature as he was, it was something that he might need some support with. She eventually relented and escorted him to the hospital to the GP as the first port of call. And with her support, he was able to go through the consultation, and that then led to the x-rays and the further investigations that showed the level of damage, extensive damage through wear and tear to his hips. So sometimes men, if you need your ladies to come with you just to sit in the practice, sit in the surgery, there's no shame in that. Just let them know that, you know, to come along with you. They don't necessarily have to go into the GP's surgery, but to come along and maybe just hold your hand might be something that you shouldn't be ashamed of asking for. And if your partner won't do it, find somebody else to do it. I'm not suggesting that you go off and have another relationship, but find someone who will hold your hand for you. And that's it.
Sounds like such a great place to conclude. But there's some things I want to talk about before I come back and conclude this. I just want to sort of just share with people the rest of the program that we've got for the month. So I'm just going to share my screen with you briefly. This is about the 5th or 6th of the events that we've been having for Black History Month this month. The next event that we've got is on Tuesday, the 19th. And again, really important topic around Black Lives Matter. And we talk about 401 years later. And if you don't understand what that means, then please come along and we'll find out on Tuesday, when we've got some of the younger members of our group that are primarily going to be leading the session on Tuesday. So please spread the word. I mean, the code is there. I mean, I put in the chat the link to our Black History Month website where this information can be found. 2 days later, we have an audience with a Hall of Fame Black racing drivers, which we are doing with an organization called NRG, Next Generation Next Racing Generation, sorry. And that's going to be quite interesting. So we have got these 3 drivers that is going to talk about their experiences. As it happens, this is going to be a partially live event from Luton, but our fellow sort of organizer has got those details. And if anybody's interested in, it's at the Carnival Arts Centre in Luton on Thursday. And 2 days later, we have another, let's say, encounter with Zora. Zora, do you want to say a bit about this specific event? You're muted.
Sorry, I was just trying to cut out the fact that I was coughing my lungs out a moment ago. Yes, I'd love to talk very, very briefly about this event. It really is essentially about Black love in our community, for any of you who are interested. As I said in the beginning, I wear a number of hats, and in this particular scenario, I have developed a new service earlier on this year, looking at introducing melanin-rich men and melanin-rich women who are seeking a loving relationship or a friendship or a companionship or something that might lead to love. And really the issue around Black love, I'd like to explore it in more detail. And it's really about what individuals are looking for at this stage in their lives, what it is that why is it that they cannot find it, what is it that they believe that they're doing wrong. And yeah, so I'd like to explore that in more detail and listen to people's concerns for those in that situation.
Thank you, Zora. And again, a really important topic in our community at this point in time, particularly here in the UK, when the opportunities to come together is so much more limited than it would be in Africa or the Caribbean. So we are looking at a session around engaging with the democratic process. the process that we have here, not necessarily perfect, but actually there's an issue about us thinking about how we're going to make better use of those mechanisms and make sure that as far as we can, we make sure that those mechanisms work in our interests, at least as much as it works in anyone else's interests. And we got to be there to be a part of it. Now, I know Amadou is on here with us. On the 27th, we've got something around finances. Amadou, do you want to say something to these people about this?
Thanks, Clyde. Yes, I think what we're trying to really do here is just really try and give insight into what is a critical part of our lives, really, our finances, and how to make the best out of them, but also how to be able to really make it work for you rather than the other way around.
Yes.
So hopefully, if people have questions before then, fine, but hopefully this will just unlock that door a bit and see where we go with it from there on.
Okay, thanks, Amadou. And again, money is really important in our community. So please come along, encourage others to do so, so we can all learn and actually hopefully make the best financial choices for our future. On the 30th, 2 more events. 30th, we've got this event, Rappers Delight, the hip hop cookbook. We got our author, Luke, a member of our steering group, who's actually written, I think, 2 or 3 cookbooks, and he's going to be doing a live thing with you, looking at some of those recipes. So again, if you're interested in food, but if you're just interested in network and getting together with us, then please join us on that date. And we conclude on the 31st with our Black History Month family quiz, and I've now got a challenge to try and get some questions together. So if you got any questions that is relevant to the Black experience and the answers, and you'd like to send them through to me, I might incorporate them into the quiz that we are going to have on the 31st. So that is the program so far. Really interesting, engaging program. So please join us. You can see, as I put in the chat, that if you miss any of these events, and it's good to be there actually, not just to look at the recording, but I put in the chat the link to our YouTube channel, where you'll find the recording of these events, and most of the ones that we've recorded are there. There's one I think I'm still waiting for the recording to put there, but and there's some really interesting things that we've done, so please check that and join in. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and
before we close, for anyone who wants to, excuse me, leave their contact details in the chat for anything else relating to male sexual health or male health. If they want to leave their details in the chat, we'll make sure that they're on any newsletters or anything that we're sending out, to make sure that they're in the loop. If they want to just leave their details in the chat, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you, Zora. Well, let me just go on then to first of all, thank Zora for raising this really important topic, notwithstanding what the doctor may have said to her husband. I think you've given him the ammunition to go home and say to his wife that actually this is a serious matter, you need to take it seriously.
I'm sure she does.
I have certainly learned from the session, and I've got some food for thought, which I wouldn't have had the session not been organized. So first of all, thank you for just thinking about the fact that this was an important issue. Thank you then for bringing it to our attention. And thank you finally for making it a really interesting and engaging presentation tonight. I didn't expect any less, but still delivery is ultimately what you want to see, and you delivered tonight. But equally importantly, I'd like to just thank everybody who's been on here this evening, because actually I think we've had a good little engaging conversation. So thank you, everybody. The association is your association. And so please engage with us. And I know I've got one connection from this evening, but as Zora said, if you'd like us to keep you in touch with things, then please just leave your details and we will keep in touch with you, so you can join us on the journey that we're on to create a much more improved situation for us all. Okay, any last word? I should say thank you to the co-host Marcia as well for doing a great job. Okay, so that is it, I think. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. I can see Nancy, thank you for leaving your details. Yenka, thank you for leaving your details. So, and if anyone else, then please do so, and we'll follow those up. Okay. Thank you. Oh, there's somebody still coming in.
I know Margaret Scott. What on earth is she doing in this time of the night?
Welcome, Margaret. Oh, are we still, we're not sharing, are we? So let's change the view now. So we go to gallery. Welcome, Margaret.
Is she still there? I can't see her on the screen. Can you see her in here?
She was coming in, but, oh, so let me stop the recording now. Sorry.